Welcome to Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates, where we explore what it truly means to be an administrative professional in today's world. I'm Melissa Mahoney, CEO of the International Association of Administrative Professionals.
And I'm Rachel Seaman, CXO of IAAP.
This podcast isn't your typical industry talk. We're here to bring you real conversations, real stories, and real solutions.
From AI to self-awareness journeys, we're here to discuss the deep issues that admins face every day. This is Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. Hey everyone, welcome back. So good to see you. Episode 11. I don't really know where this season has gone.
Right? How are we already at 11?
Just said that out loud. So episode 10, for those of you who have listened and or watched, and if you haven't, please do, we talked about a new resource that IAAP is offering called the Partnership Playbook. So exciting. Definitely worth a listen if you have not. But we were talking about this next episode and really what we wanted to dive into. And one of the sections specifically in the Partnership Playbook kind of called out to us as kind of I don't want to say a hot button issue, maybe a topic that we hear a lot about, a common topic. And so we really wanted to kind of piece that one out and talk a little bit deeper about opportunities, what we see, maybe some things that we all can do a little bit differently. So this episode is really all about choosing our words.
Yes.
And I love that.
I will say too, maybe less so that we hear about and more so that we tend to observe.
An important distinction.
Yes. And not that it doesn't get airtime or that people don't mention it, but this is one of those things where I think when you don't recognize that it's a potential issue or a behavior that's showing up, we don't know that it's an issue or a problem. So I think that's really why it spoke to us as an opportunity for us to actually dive in a little bit deeper, because I think if we can raise a little bit of awareness around this topic, some people, you may be listening to this and not even recognize that you're doing these things and that they might have some impact. So it's a great way, I think, for us to spark potentially some curiosity, a word that we use quite frequently, and maybe point to some things that aren't being talked about necessarily, but we think need to be talked about.
I love that. I think it is very subconscious. I feel like we're being super cryptic. So let's talk about what we're talking about and then we'll keep going. But we really are talking about the ways that we speak about, I would say others, but more specifically executives, bosses, supervisors, whatever word you want to identify as, and the subtle nuances, I think, of how we not speak to them, but speak about them in public, either with our peers, on LinkedIn, at conferences, whatever that looks like, and some of the ways that how we choose to talk about our experiences, our frustrations, our perspectives can often undermine trust and breed resentment. And I loved that you called that out, because I do think majority, 90% of the time, probably higher than that, 95% of the time, we don't know we're doing it. Like, I don't think it's malicious and intentional, but as a third-party observer, it's easier to look at that and be like, oh.
And as a third-party observer, you tend to be a bit more objective because you have no emotion in the context of the experience. So I will say it's tricky here too, because there's some nuance around what we believe we're entitled to when it comes to working through an issue or a challenge and venting about that, or finding peers or a community who can support you through an opportunity or a challenge. And what we're really pointing to is how quickly that intention of, I have this issue, I'm going to approach my community of peers to unpack this challenge and see who else is dealing with this frustration, how quickly that can slide into a space that isn't productive, that can create lasting impacts. You mentioned resentment, and we mean like internal resentment, when you sort of store some of those interactions and engagements. That can create resentment and influence how you show up in a future relationship with whoever it is that you're airing the frustration about. So we want to talk specifically about, maybe some examples, or maybe just call attention to some of the things we've observed that could potentially slide into something a little bit more harmful. So please know we're not making any accusations here. We're not leveraging any judgment around the things we've seen, because what we're really trying to accomplish is just challenging, or creating opportunity and space for you to get really curious about how you show up in public spaces about and around your relationship with executives or supervisor, whoever it is that you're supporting. So that's the goal here. And we certainly don't want you to take away like, oh my gosh, I've done that. Does that mean I've done something wrong? And that's not the goal here. The goal is if you find yourself in any of these examples, really start questioning and thinking about, how did I show up there? Was that productive? Did I find a resolution? Did that support better partnering? Did I resolve the issue that I came here to air my frustration around and about? So questions, we're asking you to look for questions.
And I think I was thinking back to a previous episode, I can't remember which one, where we talked about kind of the narrative, the train, right? And how far down the train has gone the track of the narrative that we're creating. And a lot of times what we're talking about and what we're pointing to is, I think many of us have taken that train down the track and it has impacted our mindset. And so our mindset in and of itself might be any type of thing. My executive can't tie their shoes without me. Like, my executive is super rude and speaks to me a certain way, or my executive, help me with examples. Like there's many that are that narrative that create the train down the track that then impact all future interactions, experiences. And again, to our point, like, it often comes unknowingly, unwittingly. We have this mindset that is, my executive is this. And then everything stems out of that. And that's really where it creates the issue, the challenge, that we're not going in with respect as a common foundation. We're going in with whatever that mindset is.
Which does create an us versus them, a me versus whoever the other person is. So it creates that oppositional conflict already, which breeds some of that resentment. And at the end of the day, it's really not going to lead to great partnering. So regardless of what those frustrations are, I think you mentioned, tying your shoelaces, or my executive wouldn't be able to navigate an airport without me telling them step by step, here's, put one foot in front of the other. It's that kind of display, or especially when it happens in public, that kind of energy around the relationship between support staff and the people we're serving does not serve anyone. And I know, I do recognize and understand that there are frustrations, and sometimes we're just like, hey, anyone else like, you just want to find common ground with folks who understand your perspective or have had shared experiences. And I totally get that. It's a part of our human need and desire to connect with one another, to feel a sense of belonging. And if we do that at the cost or expense of other people, that's actually not real, true belonging, not real, true connection. And it certainly does not foster or breed partnering. So one of the occurrences, and this is actually fairly historic in terms of timeline, it's, pre-COVID era, which I feel like is the before times.
1,000,000 years ago.
But it stuck with me. It was such a powerfully impactful moment for me around this topic. And again, we're not going to name names here. We'll try to be as generic as possible, but we were attending a conference for admins. And this was when we were executives, and sitting in a room where there was a panel being facilitated, and one of the facilitators leveraged something around, your executive wouldn't be able to find their gate at the airport if it weren't for you. And
from
there was
the stage.
From the stage. Yes. So it was part of the panel discussion. And it was obviously targeted and derogatory in nature, meant to induce a laugh, and it did. So the entire audience, probably 600 people, a room full of admins, they all laughed. And so there was this camaraderie that was created around this experience of, being the executive's owner in some way. Like, they wouldn't be able to navigate their day if it wasn't for the admin. And sitting in that room was quite a powerful experience for me, because I was an executive in that moment. Now, I have been an administrative professional, so I completely understand the feelings behind or underneath that exchange, but it did not feel good to be sitting in the room and know that those comments and that camaraderie was being leveraged at my expense. And it immediately triggered for me, is this how my admin talks about me when I'm not in the room? Because, of course, none of their executives were present in the room. This was exclusively admins. There were a few, people who were invited. And of course, because of what I do, I was unique in my executive nature at that table, in the room. And that really, really stuck with me, that experience, and really shifted for me a responsibility around unpacking that, what that is, and why we feel the need to do that at the cost and expense of the people we're trying to partner with. So if we really want to boil it down, the questions that came up for me after that experience were, how are we going to expect executives to find and see our value, to recognize, the things that they're missing, that we know they're missing out on. We know, there's opportunity to partner. We've been down this path. I mean, this is what IAAP does. This is why we exist. How are we going to get there if we are sitting in rooms and, leveraging things about our executives that are not productive and truthfully are, kind of below the bar? It doesn't feel good. It's not a productive way to approach partnering. And the other question that came up for me is, what are the executives saying about you? Mm-hmm. So if you're in this room and you feel very comfortable, sort of having a laugh at your executive's expense, and that opened a door for venting frustrations and, sharing what happened at those tables, was that people started, complaining about their executive in ways that, again, it was more about validating the ick than it was about finding opportunity to resolve a challenge or to create opportunity or space for that. And so my next question or thought when I walked away from that room is, what are the executives saying? What are they saying, and how are they saying it? If they were in a room by themselves and I leveraged for them, tell me about your experience with your admin, what would they say? And how would the admins in the room feel if they knew that the things that they were leveraging were sort of negative things that came at the cost or expense of an admin? So they were laughing about, something. I can't even think of a great example because it's hard to think that way. And I also want to point out, I recognize the comment itself doesn't feel, my executive wouldn't be able to find their gate without me. That doesn't feel nasty, or, it's kind of a funny, yeah. I get that. I feel like it that's actually more dangerous than the obviously nasty targeted comments. And that is really at the heart of why we wanted to dig deeper into this issue, because it's so easy to assign it as, we were just having a laugh. It was, no harm, no foul. But the reality is it did create harm, and it probably bred, not probably, I was there and bared witness to some of the things that bred at the tables, and it wasn't productive conversation. It was, that door led to some really targeted and nasty comments that I heard at the tables. So it's a slippery slope here. And that's why we really want to call attention to it. So that was an experience like in the room at a conference. I think the other experience, and I'll kick it to you to talk more about it, but the LinkedIn phenomenon and some of the posts we've seen on LinkedIn is another opportunity, I think, to call attention to.
Yeah. And I do want to be very careful in this because I understand the motivation and I understand the intention. And so this is not meant to accuse or attack or anything, but there is, and it's not one person. It's not one, it's definitely, growing, but it's really about addressing executives in a way that is a little, I want to be very careful with my words, but I'm going to use the word demeaning, I think. And that's a really tricky space to be in because what I see happening is assistants are trying desperately to showcase their value and may feel like they are underutilized, may feel like they are overlooked. Who am I saying may? We do this every day. Right. Like 100% that's what's happening. And to your point, like the words that we use, the tone, just the overall way of communication. I mean, communication is 7% the words we use, right? Like that's real. And that also translates even greater to social media because we don't get to hear people's tone. We don't get to hear, see body language. We don't get to see all of the other things that go into communication. So the way we build bridges is through productivity. It's through curiosity. And I say productivity as far as a goal in the conversation. The way we do that is to understand people's perspectives and be able to kind of piece together how someone got there. And a lot of times that doesn't feel like that's what's happening. And I think we both can say that confidently from the space of an executive. So as an executive, I read some of these things and I'm like, that feels kind of icky. Like
or targeted in a way that's not really going to produce a result or an outcome.
Yeah.
Like if I put myself if this was my administrative partner and I was reading this on LinkedIn, this would not produce a
I would prickle a little.
Yeah. It would get a little prickly. It wouldn't automatically breed like, oh,
tell me more.
Tell me more. More like, oh, wow.
That's how they feel. Well, and I do want to caveat all of this, and I think we both can say this. We are not talking about truly toxic behavior. Like there are toxic interactions. There are people who exhibit toxic behaviors. Like we're not talking about that. That needs to be handled in a different way than what we're talking about. We're talking about frustrations that come up, generally speaking. One of the examples in the playbook that we were referencing is, an exchange where the executive's traveling and there's miscommunication and you get to read on both sides of the perspective what was happening and how it got there. Like those are what we're talking about, is those natural occurrences where we're in our zone, we're in our space and we're head down. And then suddenly somebody says something and it creates that train narrative and we're down the track. But it really, it gives us an opportunity. We talked, it was on the last episode or the one before, I can't remember, where we said IAAP really is here to empower you to advocate for yourself. We are not here to fix anything. And
I mean, we can't. Even if we wanted to,
we can't.
We can't. We just don't have that. We don't have that capability.
And I would go so far as to say we don't want to, because fixing it doesn't solve any long-term goals. So I bring that up because I think this is a really powerful and important topic that we're talking about, because the impact feels really small. To your point, it's like those people that are like, oh my gosh, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. I hate it when somebody says that. I don't know about you. I'm like, it's not funny. If everybody in the room isn't laughing, if you've caused harm, it's not funny. So, it is an important topic to talk about, because we are here to build those bridges. We are here to create strong partnerships. We have a resource that helps create those strong partnerships. So the proof is in the pudding, pardon the idiom. I don't even get that one. But anyway, the proof is in what we are doing and how we are doing it. And we cannot do that alone. And we need the community to step up and say, I could phrase that better, or I could hire a coach to help me through that, or I could find a peer that's a trusted peer that I can just kind of vent if I need to vent, and then show up in a productive, different space.
Yeah. And I would say, especially as we're talking about the LinkedIn sort of phenomenon around airing frustrations on LinkedIn, I think there's also a responsibility that we all have to understand who our audience could be, who our audience is. So there's a place and a space for folks to unpack frustrations. LinkedIn is like the worst place, I think, to do that because you never know who's going to see that post. So if you're starting your post with Dear Executive, I would just caution you to be very thoughtful and mindful about what you write next, because what you write there and post there becomes public. Even if you think it's only it's only my connections are going to see this. I have my privacy settings set, to whatever. We're seeing them. Rachel and I are seeing them fairly consistently on LinkedIn, where the frustrations are being aired. Don't touch your calendar. Stop doing this. Don't do this. That's not quality feedback. Posting and like, this is as real as we can get around this topic. Because again, like this, it's not what we really hope and desire here is that the admins in our sphere who are listening really stop and think about how they represent their part of the partnership, because you have no control over how your partner is going to respond, how the executive is going to show up, how curious they're going to be, how open they are to partnering. What you do have agency over is your own action and behavior, and how you decide you're going to show up with intention and thoughtfulness and openness to partnering, creating those spaces where, you're not putting up potential walls that you didn't even realize or recognize could be a wall. And then the other thing I would say, especially around the public airing of grievances, even outside of LinkedIn, like think about your own social media platforms. And we've talked about this before, just around, I think the responsibility we all have to be accountable for the things that we share, the things that we post. Think about prospective partnering. So you may not be in a partnering relationship, and that may be, you may know that that's never going to be a partnering relationship. But if you aspire to have that in the future, you need to start showing up as though you want it and desire it today, because you never know who's watching. You never know who's seeing the posts. You never know, what kind of ancillary, what the ripple effect is. You don't know that when it's out in the public, but I can guarantee you there is one.
Yeah,
even when you can't see it. So I just think there's opportunity for us to really think more about our position in this partnership, and what we owe ourselves. What do we want, and what do we want in return? What would we expect our executive to do if they were in a room airing their grievances with other executives? How would we want them to show up around that conversation? That's probably a good start for you to start thinking through and be more thoughtful about how you're approaching the unpacking of frustrations, or getting under to the bottom of the things that are happening that aren't going well in the relationship.
Yeah. We don't really have time to go into it now, but we'll post a link to this resource in the description of this episode. But we drafted something, and it's based on kind of one of the chapters in the partnership playbook. So purchase it. But it's two aspects and two perspectives, from an administrative experience perspective and then the executive experience perspective. And I love, real talk, I had AI do it. So AI is pretty good at it, shockingly enough. But it really gives like one experience that's happening from a perspective, and then the other experience that's happening. And maybe it's just the way my brain works, but that is such a powerful view to be able to see like, this is what's happening. Yes. And I can identify with this one, but I also see how we got here. And if that's a resource, it's a free resource. Like, we'll do a couple if we want to share that. But I think it really helps us access things, and may even be a resource that you can share with an executive that says, hey, I heard this podcast episode and I do want to get to great partnering. Like, I want us to be that amazing partnership that people aspire to and are a little bit jealous of, and all of the things. And so if this resource, if this episode helps you get there, like, please feel free to share this far and wide, because to your point, this is not about judgment. This is not about you should do this. This is not about right, wrong, any of those things. It's about accessing the possibility and the opportunity and everything that I truly believe most of us in the administrative profession want is this partnership, that we are accomplishing amazing things. We are doing great work together. And unless and until we often get out of our own way, if I can be honest, it's a two-way street. But to your point, all we can do is what we can only look at what we are contributing, truly. So if we can help and get out of our own way, we can either see, A, this is a potential for an amazing partnership and we're going to do the hard work together, or B, this is not, and I need to work to find something that gives me that access. And it's done so in a way that is positive and empowering and productive, and all of the things that I think we really do aspire to, and kind of elevates the profession, which literally is our mission. So let's do it together.
100%. Yes. I think that's a great way to sort of encapsulate the intention of the dialogue, which is really just to offer opportunity and space for curiosity for you to explore, your own position. And you said positive, and I do want to call attention to the fact that it's not always going to feel positive, but forward moving.
Yeah.
Making sure that you're looking forward, you're looking for progress versus sitting and stewing and looking backwards without any productive progress. So I think that's the intention here. And hopefully this gives you access to some of that, even if it's just that you're starting, you might be on first base for it's baseball season for a baseball analogy. Y'all know I go to sports almost immediately with my analogies. But you might only be on first base, and that is completely fine, but be thinking about how you're going to get to second base instead of looking at all of the things that kept you or prevented you from even getting to first base. So I think that's a hopefully open door for you to access some curiosity on this topic.
Yeah. And I will offer an invitation as we wrap to, like, we would love to talk with you about this. Like, yes. This is a topic, in case you couldn't tell, that we really do see a lot of value and see a lot of possibility and potential in. So if you want to reach out to us and say, I don't even know how to start, if you want to reach out to us and say, I can't believe you said that, anything in between, like, please, please, please reach out for this conversation. Because I really do think this is one of those things that if we can find the key to it, it has massive impact potential.
Very much. Lots of potential there.
Well, hopefully this was some food for thought for everybody. It was certainly for us, and we'll link those resources in the description. So we look forward to talking with you about it.
As always, thanks for listening. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of admins with us.
Remember, this podcast isn't just about listening. It's about taking action. Whether it's advocating for yourself in the workplace or supporting your fellow admins, let's continue to elevate this profession together. If you have any thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or through our website.
Until next time, keep pushing beyond the desk. And remember, change begins with you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.